Some flowers on this puppy. It's taller than me. Looks all right. I'm looking for these little eggs that these white moths leave. They're pretty easy to see once you spot them. They're like little black dots. I don't see any here. I found some on my little one here yesterday. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's little black dots. Those are the eggs. Those are the little worms that'll fucking go to town on your pot plants and fuck them up. Oh well. Live and learn. That's what I say. Live and learn. Or get dumber. The dumber you get, the dumber you get. Well, I want to talk about here something that I've been thinking about. Just a couple things I've been thinking about. Just want to get some thoughts out on video. How am I going to do this here? Let's see, prop this sucker. Roll up the smoky boo. So I've been thinking about the final experiment. For starters, I want to talk about that because I have a person, or I have like a possible outcome I wanted to share with everybody, or with anybody who watches this, that might be a little different than what is being expected or proposed or thought might be the outcome or whatever. I think what could possibly happen for anyone who might stumble into my video that doesn't know what the final experiment is, it's like the final grift of the globe versus flat earth. This dude Will Duffy wants to pay for flat earthers to go down to, and globers to go down to the fucking Antarctica to see if the sun is visible for 24 hours during the summer down there, which it's supposed to be according to the globe, but there's been plenty of evidence and just by using, I could go over why I think that there isn't a 24-hour sun there here. Basically because there wasn't any evidence of said 24-hour sun up until the flat earthers started pointing out that there wasn't any evidence. So it's just strange that we were taught that we know there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, while in the meantime there was zero evidence of it. And then at the point where that got pointed out, became like this fucking flood of videos of the 24-hour sun down there, where it's like, oh, there isn't any. Oh, well, oh, here, look, here's a bunch. And you know, the first couple ones that I saw ended up being debunked. Were basically they were fake, and like one of them, the person even came out and admitted that they made a fake one for whatever reason, but it was fake. And so it's like, I mean, fool me once, fool me twice, you know, whatever. But like, I basically disregard all videos that I see coming from fucking Antarctica that show 24 hours of sun because of the fact that there wasn't any before somebody pointed it out. And then on top of that, the ones that first came out were fake. And on top of that, the videos from the fucking government facility down there that had a 24-hour camera going and at the South Pole where there was 24-hour sun supposedly during December, you check their footage and you see that 8 hours is fucking edited out of the fucking video every day. Then the people were emailed and the response was, oh, it's the 8 hours. Basically, the dark hours are edited out of each day. to save space on their fucking whatever. And so it's like, oh, so there's dark hours. So that debunks the 24-hour sun. Okay. Thanks for admitting that in so many words. And, so there's evidence that there's something fishy going on regarding all that. And that's why this guy wants to take people down there just so he can see once and for all. Granted, like if the flat earthers come back with a video of the 24-hour sun, I'm going to be like, fuck you, man. I'm going to have to go down there and see it myself to believe it. So it's kind of fucking, it's kind of an effort made in vain on that note. Because although if they come back with footage of the fucking sun setting, well, that'll be a final experiment, all right. That's like the last nail in the coffin for the globe, which would be entertaining and vindicating and all that stuff. Interesting, fun, heroic, whatever. Vindicating, if anything, or just like, vindicating. That's what I feel like they're going to see. They're going to see the sunset, but here's what I think they're going to see. This is what I think is going to happen, actually. Just because this is how reality usually works, especially with people that think they have all the answers. I think what's going to happen is they're going to go down there, and this is assuming they go down there. I'm pretty sure they will. And this is what probably I think will happen when they go down there. They're going to see the sunset. However, they're going to see the sun rise way sooner than they expected. So, right when the flat earthers were getting ready to celebrate that they were right, the sun's going to come up like way too early. They're going to be like, what the fuck? So the whole crew and the Globers and flat earthers alike will come back home with their tails between their legs going, what the fuck? They'll come back home with more questions than they had before they even got there. So that would typically be the way things like this work out. Then you'll see Neil deGrasse Tyson come on TV later, and he'll explain how there's some fucking, he'll go off on some tangent about how they weren't really far enough to the South Pole because it turns out the South Pole isn't right there, it's further down, fucking blah 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 blah, and he'll be like, so that's why the sun set and why it came up earlier than we, that's why we got the results that we did, and because the Earth is a globe, most definitely, because we know for a fact, and then flat earthers will come and they'll show how he's wrong or whatever. But nobody will ever see that part. They'll just see the first part, which was Neil deGrasse Tyson coming on TV explaining why the Earth is a globe, and the shit show goes on. The Earth is flat and stationary. Doesn't matter what anyone says. That's how we treat it. So that's how it is. It is what it does. What does it do? Well, it's a level plane. And it sure as fuck ain't moving. Now, you can make claims that it is, or that, that isn't, or that it is moving, and that it isn't, that it's a ball or whatever. Sure, you can make those claims, and I'll tell you that you might be right. Although, I'm not convinced. You might be right. I'm not convinced. And so, for the time being, the Earth is stationary and flat. And I'll stand behind those words 100%. I don't have any reason to think otherwise. Sure, I could take propaganda and factor that into my beliefs, or I could take fucking things that people are saying, or based on things that they're looking at that I'm not seeing. Like what I'm referring to is like the uprising Earth, and these guys will look at these demonstrations that they're doing and say, wow, look, this is happening and this is happening, and so the Earth must be rising up at 9.8 meters per second squared. That's a pretty rapid rate of travel. That's quick, and it's just so constant that we never notice it or something. I don't know what the explanation for all that is. It's like we don't see any evidence of it, but they think that all the observations we see are evidence of it. And I just wonder, it's like, well, what would things look like if it was stationary? And I guess we don't know because we've never been stationary, according to them. And what they're doing is they're like sort of using, there's like certain things about the uprising Earth that kind of make my mind twitch a little bit. Like, like where they say that weight is only the result of something pushing up against you, you know? Whereas, like, if we got in an elevator and it started to go upwards really fast, and we were somehow able to weigh ourselves during that period of uprising super fast, we would weigh more than we normally do. And I think that's probably true. And so they sort of extrapolate that knowledge out onto everything that has weight as being just simply the result of something pushing back up against it. And I say, well, that's kind of true. Like, although the earth is simply just preventing me from the ground or whatever is preventing me from falling further until I hit water or something. But like, our, you know, which we were like weightless in water. So how does that factor into the whole uprising earth thing? Like they say that weight is a result of things pushing up against us. And because you can deduce that, you know, because like if we were to be rising upwards really fast in an elevator, that we would weigh more, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I've never really seen that happen, but it seems to make sense to me. They sort of take that and run with it as if it's like, well, that's evidence that like weight only exists because there's something pushing up against us. The thing is, the motion of the earth, like these guys are you know, postulating, it's only being inferred off of like observations or off of, basically the motion is being inferred off of these demonstrations. They're not, it's not being proven. It's not like, maybe they think it is, but it seems to me that like it's more of this type of shit where it's like we see the demonstration and the results of it, and then we're applying some sort of causal effect that isn't necessarily true. Like it could be, but there could be other explanations. You know, maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know, but I feel like the motion of Earth has always just been this thing where it's sort of inferred based on whatever observations or the results of demonstrations that we're seeing. It's never been detected necessarily or proven. Like detection would be huge, but here's what the rising Earth people say. They say that an accelerometer, whatever that is, I've never used an accelerometer, but apparently the accelerometer will tell you that we're rising upwards at 9.8 meters squared per second. That's crazy talk, man. And so like I've heard other people say the accelerometer is just set for it to say that. I don't know how an accelerometer works, but what's it gauging that motion off of? How does it, like, I'm wondering about that. What is the mechanism in an accelerometer that's telling it, that's causing it to work like that, where it knows how fast it's going? What mechanism is allowing that thing to tell you how fast you're going, or in what direction and whatever? See, there's a lot of things that like we just sort of take for granted, like devices and just people's statements and stuff that seem as, you know, there's such a thing as confirmation bias, and there's such a thing as like just, you know, somebody telling a story. Doesn't have to be true, you know. Which brings me to Nathan Reynolds. This guy kind of sprung out of nowhere as far as I'm concerned, but like maybe he's been around for a minute, but like his whole deal is like it's a bit to swallow. Like, go watch Nathan Reynolds if you haven't watched him. It's a bit much to swallow. And he claims he's from like a a family where the bloodline of, well, the elites, they think they're like, I mean, this is stuff I could have told you. The elites think they're like bloodline from the fallen, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. And maybe that story is true. The fallen and the Nephilim. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not. I think it is. I think there were giants here before, and I have no other way of explaining some of this other stuff that we have evidence that is, well, there's like these fucking incredible structures that were built here on Earth by previous societies, civilizations, and I'm not satisfied with the information we have as to how and who built them. And in fact, there's other information that exists that kind of satisfies me more, which is like they were built with the help of angels and maybe giants. That makes more sense to me, as crazy and outlandish as it might seem. And I think we'd be surprised to find that like a lot of the stuff that we see in our surroundings currently today, it's stuff that we didn't make, and although we may have co-opted it and are using it to our best whatever to fit our needs to some degree, but like I don't think that a lot of the stuff that we use, I don't think we even know how a lot of people don't even, the people that are making it maybe don't even know it. Like the technology that we have, I mean, I do think that there's, like my brother can sit there and tell you how a computer is made. And he knows he knows the whole story. Like he knows the whole story, how they figured out how to make the semiconductors and all the stages they went through in the processors and all, I mean, he's very knowledgeable about this stuff. It's incredible. Like he couldn't just take and make a computer from scratch if left out in the woods, but he knows all the steps that go towards that have gone towards the evolution of computers being created. And it's because of that that I have a kind of a hard time with believing the whole idea that we already had all this technology sitting there, and it's just been sort of spoon fed to us over the years. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that's true in some cases, maybe, but I watched the evolution of computers, and I just, I don't know why they would have gone through all the trouble to make it seem like they were just like if we already had all that technology, why would we? I don't know. I don't even know if I have the time to express my thought, if I feel like inclined to express my thought all the way, which is like, why would we go through all the effort of making it look like it was evolving, over the years, if we already had it already evolved? Like that just seems really silly. I mean, although truth is stranger than fiction, that's for sure. But I just don't think that we necessarily had computers yet. I think there was computers maybe in the past or just advanced technology in the past, but I don't think we necessarily had access to it. I think we've seen the results of it maybe and have maybe reverse engineered some things. The problem is there's just so many lies, and people just, the nature of people is just that they want to like hoard power, and like knowledge is power, so they just like, it's just like we got so much lies and so much bullshit, and so many people just wanting to tell a story to look cool and shit, which is what I think maybe Nathan Reynolds kind of strikes me as being. Like he's just sort of, sometimes I feel like when I listen to him, I'm just like, this is just way too fantastical. Like, for just some dude to be sitting there telling a story, like anybody can sit there and tell a story, like, and it's just so fantastical. It's like the dude's like living with wolves, and he's, then he's like killing, bad guys, tearing their throats out with his teeth, and like, I mean, come on, man, it just gets to be a little bit too extreme for me. And like, I don't know. I'll give him this, that he might be telling the truth, but there's the other part of me that's thinking like yeah, right. Like how is anyone to believe some of the shit that he's saying? It's just like so fantastical. Like I don't know what he would have to do to convince me. Like he would have to show me something that like I don't know. I'd have to be with him in person or take some lie detector tests or something. 'Cause it seems like he's full of shit sometimes when I listen to him, and he's just so like, I don't know. The guy is just, he'll tell stories that are just a little bit too extreme for me to swallow in one. Like I need, like he just spits it like it's just like normal conversation, but like, whatever. Nobody's even watching me anyway, so nobody cares what I have to say. You want to know what I think? I think nobody wants to know what I think. It's like for someone to be like, I'm gonna give these truthers, I'm gonna give them I'm gonna give them a little taste of their fucking confirmation bias or whatever. Like, I'm gonna come in here and start telling this fucking story about how I'm from an Illuminati family or whatever. I don't like to use the term Illuminati, he says, but like just like a bloodline of Nephilim, and like and then to start spitting all this shit that like all the stuff he's saying is it's just like stuff we've already heard from but he's just telling it as though it's firsthand experience. Anybody could come and tell a story like that. Was my point is, and I just feel like the dude is. He just seems too young or too sort of like he just looks a little too soft or like not soft, but just like he doesn't look very rough around the edges. Really, he looks kind of young, and just for someone to have experienced all the shit that he's saying, it's just like I don't know, man. The stuff that he says is really extreme, super extreme. It's like as extreme as it gets. Like I don't know. I have a hard time when people just like if that's all I have to work with is just what the person's saying. People can say anything. I could sit here and tell you that my parents traded me to these wealthy people, so they could abuse me and torture me, and then later I was allowed to like go nuts on them and like just kill them and do whatever I wanted to them. So I tortured them and I fucking chewed their neck out and shot them and fucking killed and stabbed them. And then then I had to go to school and pretend I was a normal kid, but I was always all kind of beat up, so we had to move a lot, and sometimes I'd freak out and I'd just be like, I'd split and I'd go live in the fucking woods with wolves and I'd crawl into their caves and I learned how to talk with wolves and coyotes and fucking. I mean, what's like, what do you have to like to go on other than my word? Like, it's just kind of silly. Like, it becomes kind of silly because he's just saying these things as if it's fact, and I'm like, wow, it's a bit tough to swallow. Like, I don't know what I would say to him if I was interviewing him. I'd be like, okay, and so we're just supposed to believe everything you say, right? I mean, we just like, wouldn't a critical thinking person like look at you and look at your story and just be like, huh, pretty interesting, like so. At what point in time did this like a guy can't even be 40 years old? Maybe he's 40, I don't know, but he looks like he's in his mid early 30s. He's young looking, and to have gone through all the shit and abuse that he says he went through, and he starts talking supernatural shit, and like whatever. I'm just talking to myself. Like, nobody gives a fuck. You know what? You know what I think? I think nobody wants to know what I think, and I've grown to be like okay with that. Okay enough. But all the same, I feel like I should just get my thoughts out there and just for the hell of it, in case somebody else resonates with it. Apparently, you know, apparently that's what it takes to make people feel like vindicated or like fucking. I don't know. I mean, like, well, what would we do if we were the only person on Earth? Like one, if you were just the only person, like it would be pointless to talk. I was thinking about Antarctica. I was thinking it's interesting how all the major countries have a little slice of it, even though it's not really like owned officially by any country. All the major countries got in on the Antarctic Treaty where they fucking basically agreed to like this doesn't belong to anybody. This belongs to all of us people that are here at this treaty. You know, it's like they signed a treaty that says basically we aren't going to let any independent people come over here and just explore this place. This is off limits basically. Now all the major countries have a little slice of the pie there. It's like, you know, they'll show you on a map, you know, where it's like the Antarctic continent that kind of looks like it's in the shape of a brain. You know, it's like continent at the you know out in the deep south at the bottom of the planet or whatever. That for some reason still doesn't have any photographs taken of the interior. Why might that be? Anyways, it's just interesting how it's like if Antarctica was how the flat earthers say it is, which I think it is, which is like an icy ring around the whole entire world. That means like every major country is semi, you know, every major continent country is semi bordering it, you know, like or semi surround, like has somewhat of an access to it, like, you know, except for the interior countries, you know, where they're like in Europe, like where there's like the Atlantic is between, you know, it's like, but on the like for instance like China and Russia and you know America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, all these countries, they're all part of the Antarctic Treaty, you know, and it's like, and they all have a slice corresponding to where their country's at, you know, it's like in a big circle. And I was looking up time zones in Antarctica, and they were saying that usually the time zone there's like 10 different time zones in Antarctica, and so the time zones are usually like whatever country, like say Norway has a slice of the pie. Well, the the Norway part of that pie is on Norway time. It's in their time zone. New Zealand, you know, has a slice of the pie. It's on their time zone. So if you think about it, it's like a big circle going around the whole world. Like whatever country's close to the Antarctica ring, you know, it stands to reason that they would be on that time zone in their slice of the pie or whatever, slice of the donut. But I think the way the sun, like we do have a way of tracking the sun and like knowing, you know, because I mean it's high noon when it's right over your head, you know, so you can so you know that, but it's like it's high noon in a lot of. But I think the way we view the sky is it's semi supernatural. There's just like some shit going on where it's like I don't. I think it's weird that there's a 24-hour sun anywhere. Like I know there is, but it's like it's crazy though because when you think about it, it's like there's a 24-hour sun in the far north. My dad used to live up in like up in Alaska where there was like, you know, midnight sun and like fucking all dark during the winter. I just think that's crazy that there's a place where there's 24 hours of sun while everywhere else on earth is still getting a little bit of that sunshine every day. That's crazy. To think about that, it's like in no way, shape, or form do I think the earth is a globe. I've jumped off that fucking trip a long time ago. And but just for the sake of like argument or whatever, like just imagine like there's this place where the sun is being viewed for 24 hours a day for a period of time too, for like several months, 3 4 months, and and in the meantime everywhere else in the world is getting a piece of that sunshine every day, you know, but it's just like circling around this one spot here in the middle. But everywhere, you know, it's like the way we view the sky is trippy. I'm sure there's people that think they have that all figured out or something, but for me, that's I still can't like quite wrap my mind around that. Like how there'd be a place where there's 24 hours of sun, while everywhere else in the world is still getting some sunshine every day. It's just a head fuck for me, you know. And I know there's a place. I know my dad's not lying. I know that he used to live in a place where there was 24 hours of sun, and so I know that it exists and that it's true. But like, it's just crazy. It kind of makes sense to me, but like, cause I mean, it makes sense to me in the flat Earth sense, where it's like, I think when Earth was first kicked off, you know, when it first started, I think maybe perhaps the sun sprung up out of the middle of Earth, and I think that's where the sun is born, and I think we're on our second sun right now. This is all my own, and I think the moon is our prior sun, and if you look at the moon, you can see, for one thing, the craters aren't impacts. I think they're outpacks, and I think those craters used to be like holes where plasma would shoot out, like the sun. You know, like the sun has sunspots. You know, I think those are like craters, holes, or whatever, where the plasma has stopped shooting out temporarily or whatever, and is so you get a chance to see inside the dark center of the black hollow core of the sun. And I think when the sun finally burns up, like all the plasma, all the energy that it has to work with has been spent. It's left just this dry husk of a heavenly body, and it's just left there to float around in the sky doing nothing really. And and when you think about the moon, it's like this. It resembles what a sun would look like if it fried out all the way, and just it's the same size, and it's got all these holes in it all over it. Where I think that's where the sunspots would be. You know, the plasma shoots out these fucking holes on the sun, and fucking um, if you look at the moon, you can see, like, if you're in the northern hemisphere where I am, and you look up at the moon. I don't know what it looks like elsewhere, but from where I stand, you can see this sort of like you can see like a navel. It looks like the moon has a navel. I always call it a navel. I don't know if anybody else calls it that, but it's like a little belly button right at the bottom of it, and you can see these sort of stretch marks that kind of all lead to that navel point. It's trippy. Like the moon looks like it used to have some kind of functionality that it's not having anymore. Like it seems like it used to have a different. It looks like it used to be sort of fleshy or sort of like a different a different makeup kind of. Where like I think it's sort of just this dried up husk of a sun. And I think that little navel that's on the bottom of the moon, that little belly button, where it has like these little stretch marks. I think that's. Can you picture like the sun? Like, I think what happens is like a sun is born out of the middle of the earth. Whenever the sun burns up all its energy, it just spits out its last plasma, and then fucking it's just up there dark, and the whole place goes dark. And that's when the earth has been programmed to spit out a new sun. There's like a dark age that occurs. I don't know how long it goes on for, but then there's a new sun that's born from the middle of the earth, right out of the big hole in the middle of the earth, and it breaks off its umbilical cord, pops off, and it goes up into the sky, boom, and it starts to fucking spit plasma out its holes or whatever. And and there's a whole string of them down there that are just waiting for their turn, you know, like these suns to be, you know, they're like these huge ass fucking spheres that aren't shooting plasma yet. They're just dormant, or you know, like suns to be, or whatever. Because when you look at the moon and you see that little belly button and those stretch marks, you know, it looks like that's some indication of what that thing used to be, and like perhaps what it. Like, I don't think it's all that stuff that you see on the moon. This is just like haphazard, like the result of things banging into it. I don't think that's the case. Like I said, I don't think those craters are from impact. I think it's from outpack. Like we always get handed the opposite of what the fucking truth is. You know, you got to think about this shit like that. And because now all the moon does is it just circles around in the sky the same way the sun does, but it's lost some elevation. I think it's closer, and you know, because when it's spitting plasma and it's doing its thing, it's way the fuck up there, you know, because it gets shot up into the sky out of the middle of the earth. It just goes boom, and it shoots way up there, and it takes however many fucking eons, you know, for it to like finally sputter out, and it probably loses elevation after it runs out of its juice. And it's still stuck in the firmament, whatever that is, you know. Like the moon is closer to us than the sun, and that's why the sun can be eclipsed by it. The moon used to be a sun, I think. I think that explanation makes more sense to me than anything else. I know it sounds pretty out there. I'm not the first person to say that either. That's not my idea. I just kind of took that idea and ran with it because it seems like it has some merit to it. And just from my observations of the moon, there's so many weird things about the moon. Like, in my opinion, that little navel and the stretch marks that kind of lead to it, that's really, that needs some attention. I never hear anybody talking about that either. But it just seems like what that's like there's something about that needs some attention. I don't know. What is that thing? It's like it looks like it was born, like it was part of, like it was. I swear that anything that's got like a navel or a belly button, you know, it was given birth to. It's got life. I remember when I used to believe in the moon landing. I remember hearing some talk about how when they first landed on the moon, they heard it rang like a bell. Like it was just like dong, like it was hollow. Now, I don't think they landed on the moon or anything, but I think that's interesting that that piece of information would be floating around out there. I mean, what are the chances of us like having gone to the moon 6 times, had people walk on the moon 6 different times, you know, and like out this space station, and we have all these people coming and going from the ISS fucking for 20 some odd years now on rockets. They fly up there and back, you know, it's like nobody's gotten injured or died. And all that fucking risky ass fucking shit that they've been doing. I mean, is our government really that, or governments of the world, are they really that careful and they're really that concerned with human life and just to where they had their shit covered that well, you know, where nobody's ever even gotten hurt or fucking lost their life trying to do space fucking travel? It just seems like it's a place where there's no air and the temperatures vary to vast degrees according to their story. And, you know, there's the fucking radiation belts and there's fucking, you know, micrometeors and all this hazard, you know, where it's like nobody's ever died or gotten hurt even. I don't think there is. I mean, the only time that any astronauts was supposedly lost their lives was the fucking Challenger or whatever, the one that blew up, you know. And it just so happens that all those people on that ship all have doppelgangers with the exact same names that are still alive. Fuck you. It's just like one of these fucking things, and once you find it out, you're just like, oh, okay, so they're lying. That was all a big show. It's probably there to discourage the average person from being an astronaut, you know. Oh, well, look what happened the last time all these average people decided to be an astronaut. They all blew up and died. Trauma-based mind control. Trauma-based mind control. That's what, you know, that's what the whole fucking scamdemic was. Is trauma-based mind control. And it's all like this inversion, you know. It's like this. There's just reverse fucking. Everything's been inverted, perverted, inverted, subverted, fucking reworded and herded like cattle to the slaughterhouse. The thing is, with our pandemic that we had, ding! I got to set off a little flag somewhere. Fucking. It wasn't a pandemic. It was a reverse pandemic. I don't know if you need me to explain what that is. A reverse pandemic. Definition. The type of pandemic where only people that suffered greatly or lost their lives, suffered greatly and or lost their lives, were the people that were lucky enough to make it to the hospital. That's called a reverse pandemic. Now, a normal pandemic, just a straightforward one, is the other way around. The people that lived were the people lucky enough to make it to the hospital and get treated, while everybody else was dropping dead. The people that were lucky enough to get a spot in the hospital, they lived because they were getting treated. But here in a reverse pandemic, it's the other way around. Only people that died were the people that fucking made it to the hospital. And there's not enough people taking note of that. It's just like, I'm sure there's plenty of truthers, but it's just like, it's interesting how that's not really like spoken about too much in the mainstream fucking discussion. It's like the obvious reality of it. Like the only people that died were the people that were getting treated for it. Wow. Like there wasn't any COVID deaths, happening anywhere else. It's just fucking ridiculous, man. It's just unbelievable. It's impossible to believe. It's the opposite of believable. So I can tell the things I'm saying are really resonating with you, Zero. Maybe I'll play your song. I have a song I wrote for Zero. I've been from here to zero, although I don't believe it exists. I insist that there's no such thing as nothing, but all the same, it would be logical for me to claim once more that 2024 years ago, we were living in the year zero. And that's the year that we were waiting on for so long, as we counted backwards in a long line of negative numbers. In the era of BC, we kept track of time in reverse. It was such a curse. We didn't know how long ago we'd started. We just knew that we'd end up at zero eventually. And after a long wait, it felt great to be living in the year zero. Zero. You see, we don't know what history really shows when it's always being superimposed on the present, and we can't ever learn our lessons, and we can't go back to find another way to get right here. It's all these things that have occurred that led us to be where we are right now. And I just don't know anything about zero, because I can't wrap my mind around this oh so elusive idea of nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nihilism. Denialism. I can't even try to begin. Zeroing in. I feel like it's all been zeroed out. But you're not allowed to pout about this, because it's too late now. And we've come so far from zero. Zero. Zeroing in. I feel like it's all been zeroed out. And I've been from here to zero, although I don't believe it exists. That's my song, Zero. And I usually play it on guitar, but I just too lazy to grab it and play it. So I sing it acapella. Acapella. Archipelago. The workers across the street were looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And I get no applause. I must really suck. But I don't care. Thing is, I just don't give a fuck if I suck. Cause I keep doing it. But don't give a shit if anybody likes it. It's just what I do, and I'm gonna get her done. It's just because it is what it does. And what does it do? What doesn't it do? Apparently, if you're Nathan Reynolds, there's not much he hasn't done. He's killed people with his teeth, lived with wolves and coyotes in caves, abused and traded around as a kid, just sent to different places and families to live and be molested and abused, and then he later killed those people. And then he just, he got to see magic and miracles and angels and demons and fucking technology that nobody's ever seen, so on and so forth. And he goes on a podcast every other day and talks about it and blows people's minds. And it's like these crazy stories. And he wrote this book that he thinks is as important as the Bible. It's just, it gets to the point where you're like, okay, man, all right, I can make up stories too, Like, when people tell you something that's just so fantastical, you just have to wonder, it's like, why are they telling me this? Like, they have to know it's pretty difficult to believe. And he hardly ever addresses that angle where it's like, I know the things that I'm saying are probably striking you as being just like ludicrous, like just impossible to believe. They never say that. He just tells it like it's just so matter of fact. Like of course you believe what I'm saying. This is what happens. But it's not what happens. Kids don't go live in the caves with coyotes and wolves whenever they feel like it because they learn how to talk with them. That's just not your average thing. Maybe it happens. That's just what happens in the movies, as far as I'm concerned. And I do think that a lot of the stuff he's saying is like people are inclined to believe in it because it's sort of like confirmation bias. When he talks about the Nephilim and the giants and like the stuff that a lot of people kind of, the truthers have sort of found to be like a information that's sort of viable. Like I think there was giants here. There's enough evidence of that. I mean, based on all the giant bones and skeletons that have been found, I didn't find them, but there's plenty of evidence of it apparently. And not to mention a lot of the structures that we've seen and I've seen in person, even, where it's just like, why was that built? Why do we need to make doors that are fucking 40 feet tall, like made of metal? And like, who's doing shit like that? For what reason? And there's buildings I've seen where the windows are just up so high that it's impossible to look out of them. So why would anybody want to design a building like that? You don't want to see the view outside. What's the point of putting a window in? Just let light in. You might as well just make skylights or something. Why do you put the windows like 20 feet up on the wall, 30 feet up on the wall? It doesn't make sense. And stairs, where they're built, like each stair is like, 12 feet. Like, what the fuck? It's not it looks like a staircase when you go far enough away, but it ends up not being possible to walk up as a normal sized human. Here's what I think is going on. We hear these like myths and these stories and tales of the folklore of the days of long ago. Where there's like elves and little pixies and fairies and shit and little people, elves. I think we were the little people. We were the elves. Don't I look kind of elfish? Because think about it, if there was giants that were like massive and here we are little compared to them, well, then we're the little people. And, we're still here. They all died off or whatever. Something happened to them, but it's like the elves took over. Now, of course, we're going to think of elves as being littler than us, but maybe we're the elves. Just a thought. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful, because I'm creative and I think of things. At least I don't tell you things and tell you the facts. when I know that it's not a fact. That's what a shill does. They'll spit shit that he knows isn't fact, and he'll tell you that it is. The Earth is rising up at 9.8 square meters per second. That's fact. It's been proven. You know that it hasn't been proven. The accelerometer, it's just a fucking toy, man. Like, that's what really bugs me about the Globers. They'll come and be like, well, look at this fucking gyro compass. It's spinning and moving and doing things, and that proves the whole entire fucking Earth is spinning. Really? Is that what it proves? To me, it just proves that you're holding a spinny toy. It's the motion of Earth is always inferred. It's never like just detected or proven to be the case. It's always inferred, and that's why there's flat earthers, flat and state. Now I got to specify flat and stationary earthers, which is just the honest, objective truth. That's what a flat and stationary earther is. It's just being honest with you, because none of us ever have to experience or account for curvature. None of us ever have to experience or account for the motion of Earth. So in that regard, if you're honest with about how you're experiencing the Earth and how we treat the Earth, you're going to have to tell me that it's flat and stationary, because that's how you treat and experience it. It's a fact. There's no way around that. You can believe that it's doing all these other things if you want. I'm fine with that. I don't care. But for me, I'm just going to stick with the honest report of what it is and how I experience it and how I treat it. I don't feel the need to move anywhere past that. Especially if nobody's got to account for it or experience it, then what the fuck? What's the point of talking about it if that's the case? Like I say, it is what it does. It ain't what it cannot do. I don't like having to carry the term of flat earther, but I will carry that term because I know what it means. It just means somebody who's come to find that the fucking globe, the rotating globe in motion around the sun, has never been scientifically proven beyond a shadow of a doubt at all. It's far from being proven. In fact, it's been disproven. Every attempt to prove it has failed utterly. And so, to the point where we have scientific experiments that were conducted correctly that are referred to as failures. You don't say that about a science experiment. You understand? Because a science experiment is just trying to find truth. So if it's a failure, how is that a failure? You find it, if what it means is that your hypothesis was a failure. If the experiment was done correctly, then it's not a failure. It might tell you something that you don't want to hear, in which case that means your hypothesis was maybe a failure. Like a scientific experiment is only a failure if it was done incorrectly. But there's scientific experiments that were done correctly that are referred to as failures. And that tells you everything you need to know about the heliocentric model. Right there, just that one little piece of information. Airy's failure, by the way, in case you're wondering which one I'm talking about. It's called Airy's failure. He's trying to prove the motion of the Earth, and he failed to do so. So it's called Airy's failure. Poor guy. This poor guy couldn't conduct a science experiment correctly, and he'll forever be remembered. Yeah, right. No, the idiots that can't perform science experiments correctly, they'll never be remembered. Nobody remembers them. They didn't cut it. You know, why are they going to be remembered? No, they won't be remembered unless they are scientists that conducted experiments correctly, and their experiments were actually profoundly, revealing about the place we live and things that are going on here. Those are the people that get remembered, like Airy's failure, for instance. He failed to prove the heliocentric model. But that's fine. It's fine for us flat earthers. It helps us prove our point. The globe has never been verified scientifically. It's just a story. That doesn't check out. Now, I'll give them this. If everything they say is true about the globe Earth, then it's true. But since we've seen so many of the things they've said that are true been proven to not be true, for instance, like boats over the horizon being proof of curvature, well, it's like apparently my camera can like make curvature go flat or something because I can bring the boats back into view in the viewfinder in the camera, a boat that's completely disappeared from your field of vision. Like you can't see it, you can't resolve it with your eyes anymore. But now you can zoom in on it with your camera and see that it's still there and it didn't go over any curve. It's right there. Your camera shouldn't be able to zoom around a corner or over a curve. It's not something that you should be able to do. It's technically impossible. However, now we got this refraction excuse that comes. There's always some excuse for why we're like proving their shit to be bogus. Well, refraction can bend light upwards. So basically, refraction can make something that's a curved ball look like a flat plane. Is that's just a fancy, science excuse. So what we found is that every time we prove the globe wrong like this, there's some new excuse that's like thrown in our face. It's like a fucking way of hanging on to the heliocentric model. And it's like, so it becomes this unfalsifiable, like pile. It's like a stack of a stack of debunked hypotheses. No, it's basically a stack of debunked theories underneath a pile of unfalsified. Here's what it is. It's a stack of debunked theories underneath a pile of unfalsifiable hypotheses. That's what it is. That's what it amounts to. Flat Earth Andy, what's up, man? Someone says hi finally. You're the first to say yo. Yo. Flat Earth Andy. Shout out to Flat Earth Andy. You should sub to him if you're not subbed to him already. Dude's cool, man. He's cool as fuck. Have you seen Nathan Reynolds? Have you stumbled into that rabbit hole at all? Flat Earth Andy? I was talking about him earlier, and I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think I might piss off Lucky Haskins for saying that, but still, I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's just like, if we're just gonna take people at their word, like it's kind of like going the opposite direction. Critical thinking would tell you that like someone, like being in a situation where we have to take someone at their word, it's basically like it's a crapshoot. You know what I mean? And for the most part, like there's very few people that aren't going to embellish their story a little bit, and there's a lot of people that will actually just outright fabricate all kinds of fucking crazy shit just because they know it's going to get a lot of attention, and they'll learn how to do it and deliver it in a way where it seems believable because they want that, undivided attention. And I think that's kind of where Nathan Reynolds comes in, but maybe he's being honest. I don't know. Some of the shit that he says is just like, it's so outlandish and just grandiose. I mean, it's like, fuck, man. I almost want to get his book just so I can like see the epitome of it. Because I mean, it just seems like the stuff he says in these interviews. I mean, it's just like, wow, okay. You used to kill people with your teeth and you bite their throats out and fucking. Then when you couldn't take all the crazy torture and punishment and fucking Illuminati like treatment, you'd run away and go live with the wolves and the coyotes in their caves because you knew how to talk with animals. And you've been to places where you've seen like other humanoid type creatures that aren't humans. They're different animals, and down underground, way deep underground, you see these huge monsters and these crazy, all this shit. The monsters are real. I've seen people transform into monsters and then transform back into people. I mean, it's like the kind of shit that like anyone should just think about it for a second and be like, wait a minute, like this sounds a little bit far out, man. It's a little bit far out, man. It's kind of getting out there, bro. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think all those things that he mentions are possible because I do believe there's a lot of stuff that we're being hidden from. Like, I think, the whole Tartaria thing, all the crazy, these buildings that are built so just immaculate. I think we've built a lot of them, these buildings that look just incredible. But I think that was inspired from a lot of these buildings that we didn't build at all. They were built by like Nephilim, like giant people, or basically they were built by angels. Supernatural type shit. That's stuff that doesn't check out as far as today's logic is concerned. Like I think a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of structures on Earth that were built by angels, or that basically we assisted them in building. Like they might have had us working for them, or whatever humanoids were living. And here's the thing about being a human, Dean. 2 questions, please do. I'll take questions as long as it's not like some kind of like sarcastic like jab at me or something. Shoot away. Shoot away. And until I see your questions, I'll keep babbling. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I think it's possible these buildings were designed and crafted by. Oh yeah, I was talking about being a human. I think a, to call yourself human is a trap. I think that's basically us um, dignifying or basically uh, what is the word like agreeing to be part of, or like what is the word? It's like sort of I can't think of the word right now. It's like consenting to this to the common law that we're being ruled by, like the legal system that we exist within. It's it's pretty esoteric, and just like when you get down to the brass tacks and the nitty gritty, like what our legal system is, how it's been designed, and what it's all based off of. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty out there. But I mean, it makes a lot of our language and stuff. It's all like tied into all this stuff, and like the word human is basically what these us type people that are existing within this legal system with our birth certificates and our fictitious straw man that they apply, like whenever you get like any legal documents with your name on it, it's always going to be in all capital letters or significance to all this shit. And it's like being a human is to be a hue of man. It's like a shade. It's under the color of law. Like to call yourself human is basically to consent to this legal fucking shit that we're being like, that we got sort of drawn into without really even having any say in it, because we weren't the ones that signed our birth certificates. So we didn't really willingly like opt to be part of this, but it's just like there's language that's designed in such a way to where we sort of consent to it without even realizing it, and call ourselves human. That means we're men that exist under the color of law by this legal system that we're being run by, or like, that seeks to sort of control us and command our moves. Like I don't need 10 commandments or any legal fucking penal codes to get me to act right. I know what's right and wrong. Most people do inherently, but like, it's insulting for someone to come and tell me that you better not kill. I hate when people tell me not to do something that I was already not going to do, or I don't like when people tell me to go do something that I was already planning on doing. It's kind of like, shut the fuck up. I had that under control. I'm good, man. I know I was doing that already, or I wasn't doing that already, or whatever. It's kind of like someone telling you, like, Black Lives Matter. It's like, yeah, I know. Well, why do you tell me that? Like, what do you think? I don't care? You're going to ask me questions or what? I need something to drink. I'll bring you with me while I go get a drink. Oh, my ass. Oh, I was sitting in a position too long. Oh, my leg is asleep. I'm surprised I can even walk. You have 2 questions. Can I ask you 2 questions? Well, that's one already. What's the next one? Just kidding. You can ask me 5 questions. Can I ask you some too? Looks like I lost my audience. Oh, whatever. Was it something I said or didn't say? I don't think they should even tell you how many people are watching your show. That's just like a head fuck. It's like it like takes the wind out of your sails. It's like, oh look, everybody left. Oh, well, fuck everybody. I'm gonna stop talking about the cool shit now. Nobody cares. I don't think it's even accurate half the time, because I've seen it say 0 and I've just been like, oh, I lost my audience, nobody's here. Then people are like, oh, I'm here. Well, how come it says there's nobody here? And then other times I think it says there's people there when there ain't nobody there. They're like, we're doing our best to tell you how big your audience is, or how small it is, or how much people don't like you, and how much they do like you, and how much you should like try to be like everybody else so you can be liked. I love pumpkin coffee. This time of year is great. I love pumpkin things. You know, I'm talking about pumpkin shit. So good. Pumpkin coffee. Oh, it's so good. I'm gonna heat it up. I've been from here to zero. I got my new trumpet working again finally. I don't know how to play trumpet. So cover your ears. I can teach you how to play trumpet really quick if you want to learn. Here's how you do it. I'll show you. Can you do this? If so, you can play trumpet. Because that's all you got to know how to do. That's all you have to know how to do. And it's for that reason that I've been able to teach kids trumpet really well. They learn quicker than most people, because most people that are like adults, they don't want to go. They feel embarrassed or something. But the kids like, yeah, I can go like that. I do that all the time. And they end up being really good trumpet players. I've had kids like excel way past me with lessons that I've given for free. I don't necessarily teach music lessons. I have before. I've volunteered for companies before, just for the hell of it. It's fun. But it's not something I do for money, because I feel like it's weird. If somebody offered me money to teach them, I would. But like I feel weird trying to charge people for things that I'm saying. It seems weird. It's so good. Well, nobody's gonna ask me a question. Nobody's even here. Maybe I'll just say fuck this show. No questions? Okay. Fine. Fine. Don't ask me questions. Fuck this show.